your
There we go.
co-host. So
Thank you.
do you want to start the recording when we've done the meditation?
I'll just edit it at the end.
Okay. So if you just want to, just close your eyes. Just take some nice deep breaths. We just bring ourselves into the present moment of now. So we connect with our higher self and we just ask for whatever information that wants to come through, be allowed to express for the greater good of all. So Amanda, welcome to your show.
Thank you very much.
For people who are watching this, I'm Debra Sofia Magdalene, the Frequency Alchemist, and Amanda interviewed me recently for her podcast. And I said, well, I think you should share your story, because at the end we were talking and, you have such an inspirational story to share, Amanda, one of real transformation. And, I'd like to sort of just start by just inviting you to let people know who you are, what you do, and then we'll go into your story.
Thank you so much. It's so lovely to be on my own show, but be the one answering the questions instead of asking them. Makes a lovely change. And thank you so much for giving me this opportunity, Deborah, to share, because sharing my story is something that does make me feel quite vulnerable. And I know that one of my mantras is there is strength and power in my vulnerability. But even so, I still get a little bit quaky and shaky, and I couldn't think of anyone better to have asked me questions. So thank you for giving me the opportunity. So as anyone who's listening knows, I'm the host of the Wednesday Wellbeing Show and the Tuesday Vibes Show on Amanda Joy's podcast. I'm also on Awakened podcast and NTR Sounds, and the Wednesday Wellbeing Show is all about bringing positive and powerful messages about health and well-being and transformation. And I'm so blessed to get the most amazing guests on, yourself included in that, Deborah. I get some really amazing people on who bring just such an incredible wealth of really fascinating information about different therapies, different spiritual practices, different ways of living. And we talk about everything: veganism, weight loss, and weight management, type 2 diabetes reversal, different ways of living and being, community, and it's just a great, just very lucky to be able to have a podcast, but that really is my hobby. So I do in my free time. As a job, I'm known as the Joyful Mind Mentor. I run lots of workshops, helping people, giving people really kind of useful tools and techniques to live a joyful life, because my life was not very joyful. So really, as the Joyful Mind Mentor, I just share with people what has worked for me, and I share sort of my story and help support people to have a better life. I'm a clinical hypnotherapist, and I'm the director of studies at the Northern College of Clinical Hypnotherapy, where I help train people, absolutely outstanding, world-class therapists. We bring into the industry who are then passionate. I'm very passionate about supporting people, and obviously with us having just had quite a challenging year. And well, always mental health has always been something that's been really important to me, and it's always been something that I believe is lacks in our country. There's a lack of good mental well-being services in the country. I've always said for years that within the NHS, mental well-being has been like the Cinderella of the health service, and with our health service struggling as it is, mental well-being services further continue to struggle. So people, need to have different ways to access help and support, and clinical hypnotherapy is so incredibly powerful and so transformational, and it really helped me. So it gives me great pleasure, and it's a real blessing to be able to share knowledge, skills, tools and techniques with my students at the Northern College, where I teach and I guide and create syllabuses and behind the scenes stuff and run the Northern College of Clinical Hypnotherapy. We've got training centres across the northeast of England, and we also teach online too. So it's great. Yeah, it's a really wonderful job. I love it. Love it, love it, love it.
And your Tuesday show, what's the focus of that one? So we've got the Wednesday Wellbeing show, which we know about. What about the Tuesday one?
The Tuesday Vibes is all about giving people really interesting like snapshots or bite-sized bits of information about a specific topic. So we talk on specific issues. So for example, our last show was all about death, which many people, including myself, have lost relatives, friends, loved ones over the past year, and that's affected us and had an impact on us in many different ways. Some was because we haven't been able to say goodbyes, some because we haven't been able to go to funerals, or when we have been able to go to funerals, it's been very strange. Like, how do I orientate myself? I want to hug you, but can I or can't I? And Buddha says that death is the greatest teacher, because it teaches us that nothing is permanent. So in our death show, sounds really awful, doesn't it? Tuesday Vibes to raise your vibes and help you to feel more positive. But I think if you ask yourself the question, if I was going to die in 6 months, am I living the life that I want to live? Am I doing what I want to do? Am I loving the people that I love in the way I want to love them? Or is there something that's in my life? And I think sometimes, because death is a great teacher and death does teach us that all is impermanent, it's a really thinking about our own mortality and our own death quite often does take us to a place where we have more value for the things in life that we sometimes take for granted. And it gives us the opportunity to reflect on where we're at and make changes that are probably going to really benefit our lives. So although death is quite a heavy subject, when you're aware of your own mortality, I think you do vibrate at a higher level. So the Tuesday Vibes is all about helping people to perhaps have a mindset change, or just have a higher vibration, feel more positive and more joyful.
I think death is a really important topic, and it should be part of everyday conversation. And a lot of people, it's a taboo subject. It's like, oh, I can't talk about this.
Well, yeah, exactly.
But the more we talk about it, the more normal it becomes, because we're all born to die, and it is a natural part of our way of being. Is like we're born, we live, we die, but actually, do we die? Because our consciousness lives on.
I don't know, I feel like bursting into song now. The circle of life.
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't believe that this world is the end. I think, when I was before I was born, I was in my mum's tummy, I was in the womb, and that was my world at the time. And then I was born into this life. So for me, death is another rebirth to another. We just don't know what's going to happen. And I think there's a lot of mystery, and that, you're right, it is taboo, and there's lots of fear around it, which is why we picked it for a Tuesday Vibes topic.
Oh, I must listen into that, because I do love talking about death, but we don't want to talk about death today, because we want to talk about you and your life, so that your viewers and listeners can learn more about the woman behind the Amanda Joy. Who is Amanda Joy? So, like, if somebody says to you, Amanda, like, who are you? How do you answer that question?
Do you know, it's really interesting, because I had that conversation with my partner this morning. I was like, who am I? When you think about me, who am I? And he just went, I'm Joy, did some kind of crazy dance, because I think the one thing that I am genuinely is positive and full of life and full of passion. And yeah, I think my mum chose my name, Amanda Joy, but I think she chose really well, because I am quite joyful. But you know, one of the reasons I wanted you to interview me today was because I wanted to share about the fact that not so many years ago, I really wasn't joyful. And that, you know, funny we talk about death, because my old self, Amanda, died, and Amanda Joy was kind of reborn. And I got the opportunity to start again, and to start, you know, to start life again. And for many people, they don't get the opportunity to start again. And what I've learned is that I get the opportunity to start again every single day. Every single day is a new beginning. And, you know, for me, I woke up one day and decided that I needed to start again. Like, I got some help and I made some changes in my life. And I do feel like completely reborn. And yeah, that was just 5 years ago. So it was important to me to, although I'm Amanda Joy, the Joyful Mind Mentor, and I'm very positive, I am the way I am because I have certain spiritual practices, and because I live my life in a certain way, and because I have been through quite a healing journey, and I've had my own kind of experiences of quite dark times, and now I'm just blessed every day with where I am at the moment.
So let me just go into the old Amanda.
Mm.
Okay, so describe, where was the old Amanda? What was going on for
So
Amanda?
I drank too much. I Some people would like to use the label alcoholic. I certainly embraced that label for a short while. I drank every single day. I would wake in the morning, and because I was going to work, you know, some days of the week, I wasn't able to be drunk at work. So I would take prescription medication. And because I was traveling with my job, I had a doctor in the UK, I had a doctor in Spain, and I also had doctors in the Middle East. I had a bad back, so I was able to get access to pain medications, all different types, some from the doctor in England, some from the doctor in Spain, some from the doctor in the Middle East. I was able then to mix that with antidepressants and other medications that, you know, made me feel different, took me out of my head. So I would wake up in the morning and open my bedside cabinet, which was like a small pharmacy, and I would take a massive amount of prescription medications, and then I would get in the shower and get dressed and get ready and go to work. And you know, work for me, I loved my job. I was teaching at this point in my career. In the past, I've done nursing and counselling and all sorts of other jobs, but I was teaching and traveling at this point. And this was kind of the point where things were pretty bad. And I would work, and my work was never horrifically bad, but there were points where I didn't get things done in time. There were points where I let a lot of people down, and my solution to sort of letting people down and not doing things right was to either manipulate and lie, or to resign and get another job. So I did lots of traveling, but I also moved from job to job to job. As soon as I'd kind of messed up to the point where I couldn't really fix it, I would then look to move and to take another job. And my work day would sort of begin around 7 in the morning, and by sort of 1 o'clock, I'd be planning my first drink. My head was obsessed with where I was going to get booze from, how I was going to get drink. Certainly when I lived in Europe and in different parts of Asia, I was able to buy alcohol very easily. But when I was in the Middle East, it was actually illegal to drink alcohol, which meant I had to mix with really dodgy people to get what I wanted, and I also had to make my own alcohol as well. So I always joke with my friends and say, what point did you know you were an alcoholic? And I said, well, I don't think I ever really did until very near the end, but I maybe should have guessed when, I'd stopped drinking gin and tonic or vodka and Coke or a whiskey and lemonade, and I'd started just drinking bottles of clear or bottles of brown, because that was the option, clear or brown. Would you like clear alcohol or would you like brown alcohol? But my day, around sort of lunchtime, I'd start fantasizing about the first drink. Oh, I can't wait to get home and have that first drink and relax. I can't wait to get home and have that first drink because I'm stressed. I can't wait to get home. And I would start fantasizing and planning that first drink. And I would get home around 3:00. And I would always have this thing in my head of, I'll get all my work done first and then I'll have a drink. I'll get all my work done first and then I'll have a drink. But, very often the drink was poured the minute I walked through the door. And the drinking would start around 2 or 3 in the afternoon on a work day. And of course, I was mixing alcohol with prescription medication. So I was quite high, quite drunk, in a bit of a mess, really. And I would do my work in that state. And then, drink until I passed out. And then the day would start all over again the next day. Days off were just drunk days. Days off were drinking days. I got quite sick drinking sometimes. I would get, people talk about having hangovers and a hair of a dog, but I remember being on my knees in front of the toilet and just vomiting and trying to drink some alcohol. I think it was a bottle of vodka, trying to get some alcohol back in me, because I knew that if I could drink again, I would stop being sick and then I could be back in a place of drunkenness as opposed to being in a place of hungover. So my kind of whole entire life for quite a period of time was high on drugs or drunk or hungover and trying to get drunk again.
So Amanda, how many years did that life go on for?
I think probably about with that kind of level of craziness, about 4 years. Previous to that, it was more party drugs and party drinking, and I could maybe go 3 days a week without a drink.
Yeah,
but it creeps up on you.
Were you trying to escape some emotional pain?
By that point, I didn't know what I was trying to escape. I was trying to escape myself. I used to wake on a morning and it was almost like depression, gloom, doom, death, misery was sitting on the end of my bed just waiting for me to wake up. And the minute I opened my eyes, my first thought was, how can I escape this feeling?
What was a catalyst for you that shifted or helped you to realize that you had a problem?
Do you know, it was a funny thing. I had been told by my doctor that my liver was in such poor condition that if I didn't stop drinking, I had 3 months left to live. Wow. They reckon that, my liver was in such a state that I had about 3 months and that I would need medical intervention. I totally ignored all of that advice and actually left that country. So I didn't see that doctor again. I knew that I was really, really ill. And that Christmas, I remember being with my family in the UK that Christmas, and by that point, alcohol had stopped working. I couldn't get drunk anymore. I was just plateauing. And when I wasn't drinking, I was shaking and feeling very ill. So I wasn't drinking. I couldn't get drunk anymore. I was just drinking to keep myself going, really.
Yeah, just to function. Yeah.
I felt sick all the time. I felt nauseous all the time. I just felt, ugh. just ill. I was a size 28 and my liver function was going, my skin was going yellow, and I'd gone blind completely in one eye.
Wow.
And I was, my hair was all falling out and my skin was totally covered in boils. So I was in a real mess. And like oozy pussy boils in my armpits, on my breasts, just everywhere. My whole body was covered in boils, and I was just really poorly. Do you know, I smiled and I laughed and I joined in, and I didn't tell people the pain that I was in. And even then, I didn't think I had a drinking problem. I just thought everybody had this. I might have drank a little bit too much, but I didn't really think it was too bad. And then a family member of mine had fallen over drunk and hurt themselves. And so I said, you're an alcoholic, you need help, and you should get some professional guidance on this. And because they wouldn't get help, I looked to get help for them. In my arrogance, people say that you're in denial, but really I was just completely delusional about the reality of where I was and what was happening, to the point where, the doctors had told me, and it was all like, although I'd heard it, I hadn't listened. I hadn't taken in that information. I hadn't processed it in any way, shape or form. So I went to like a recovery group support meeting, and everybody was sitting around in a circle, and there was people in there that I knew, there was people in there that I used to drink with, there was people in there that I actually really respected and kind of looked up to, and all of the people in there were all lovely and well dressed, and everybody was smiling, and it was all really positive and lovely. And they all started sharing about how their life had been before they'd managed to kind of set themselves free from drug and alcohol abuse and use. And every single person who shared their story, it was like they were sharing my story or sharing an aspect of my story. And I remember almost in my head, it was like a competition. Well, I've done much worse than that. Oh, you think that's bad? You should live my life. And then by the end of that kind of meeting, I'd heard about 15 people share a story that resonated with me. I recognized the emotional pain. I recognized the dark feelings. I recognized the craziness of the behavior. And that was when I went back home to see my mum, and I said, well, I don't know about anyone else, but I've got a problem. I'm an alcoholic for sure. This is something that I need to deal with. And it was on that very day when I had that realization and I had that moment of acceptance that I then decided that that was something I needed to deal with. I needed to get help. And that was the 31st of March, 5 years ago.
Wow.
So it was, we're doing this on the 1st of April, this interview. So yesterday was quite a milestone day for me, because it's 5 years since I had my last drink. And I didn't want it to be my last drink. I hadn't expected it to be my last drink. And I used to joke with my friends, if I'd have known it was going to be my last drink, it'd have been a good one. As opposed to just, I think it was a few glasses of wine that I'd had. And then I had this kind of moment of, oh my goodness, I'm an alcoholic.
So how did you turn your life around from that realization?
Well, to start with, I removed the alcohol, which was the worst thing I could have possibly done. Oh my goodness me. I mean, for years, alcohol had been like, I talk about alcohol as being like the bad boyfriend, it had been something that had provided me comfort. It had been something that had stopped me feeling alone and isolated. It was something that gave me confidence so I could go out and speak to people. It got me in the party mood if I wanted to. It got me into a relaxed mood if I wanted that too. It kind of provided lots of things for me that I didn't know how to get myself.
Yeah.
And I took that away. It was like somebody had ripped off my comfort blanket. It was like somebody, oh my goodness, I had a hangover. for a few days, that's for sure. I felt like absolute death. I shook, absolutely shook. I mean, I vomited, and I did, everything came out of me in all the different orifices, and I shook and shook and shook. I shook on the outside and sweated for about 2 full weeks, but then I shook inside as well. It was like the insides of my body were shaking. And had I have had possibly better advice, I may have gone for a medical detox and had that experience supervised, which is what I would recommend anyone. Don't do it the way I did it. But I just did it by myself, and I went and I put myself through hell for a couple of weeks. But I got to a point where I wanted the shaking to stop. I wanted the feelings that I was experiencing, the horrific depression, the massive overwhelming feelings of anxiety. I wanted that to stop, and the only way that I knew to stop that was to drink. And I thought, if I don't get if somebody doesn't help me, I'm gonna drink. And I was still taking prescription medications at that point, but in a more controlled way, and I wasn't mixing lots of different medications from all over the world. I was just taking the ones that had been prescribed by one doctor. But it just nothing felt like it was enough, and nothing was going to help me. So I actually took myself off. I went to Spain, and got myself into a recovery program and got some support there. But the moment of relief for me may sound like a crazy thing, but I'm going to share it with you. So I'd been shaking inside for what had seemed like weeks and weeks and weeks. I think it was about the second month in. I hadn't had a drink for 2 months, but I was still shaking, and I just felt wretched. I wasn't sleeping properly. I'd had periods of hallucinations. I was seeing rats crawling all over things, and so I'd had all these hallucinations. My heart rate was going up and down. I was panicking all the time. I just felt really anxious, really terrible, and I was just recovering. That's what happens when you go through recovery. And all the emotional stuff, I was in just so much emotional pain. It was horrific. And it was an older guy who'd been free of drugs and alcohol for years, said to me, "You need to get on your knees and pray." And I remember thinking, stupid man. What's praying gonna do? And he said, you've got on your knees plenty of time to vomit. You've got on your knees plenty of time to pick up a beer, or to take a drug or whatever. You've been on your knees doing some pretty unpleasant things. Why not give it a go? And I thought, do you know what? Maybe I will. And as the day progressed and I was feeling worse and worse and worse, I thought, I'm gonna do this. So I got on my knees in the living room where I was, and I didn't know who God was. I didn't know what God was. I'd been brought up like in a born again Christian church, and had experienced quite considerable abuse from church leaders and elders. So I couldn't have in my head this kind of born again Christian God. That didn't resonate with me at all. I felt there was something there that I'm happy to call God nowadays, but I couldn't believe in in a man on a cloud type God. But I just didn't know what else to do. So I got on my knees and I just went, God, I don't know who you are, if you even exist, or if you're even there. Help me, please. And I genuinely asked God for help in that moment. And it was like instant relief. It was like somebody had poured beautiful healing aromatic oils over me. It was like through my body, the shaking and the quaking that had been going on for months inside, all of a sudden I felt stillness. I felt a sense of calm. I felt a warmth. I felt comfort. that I hadn't felt in years, and it was my spiritual awakening moment, if you like. I had an awakening, and I felt a presence, and I don't know what it was, and I don't think I'll ever know what it is that I felt that day, or what it was that I felt, or what I feel on a daily basis when I sit with those feelings now. I don't know what that is. I'm not meant to know everything and understand everything. What I understand is when I connected with that energy force, when I connected with the universe, when I connected with God on that day, I felt a sense of peace. And a couple of days later, I went out on a boat, and I went out on a yacht, actually, to watch the sunset. And my eyes I had actually had some problems with my vision. I'd lost my sight completely in one eye. In my right eye, I'd completely lost my sight. But my sight had started to return, and I'd got myself some good specs by that point. But I went out to sea, and I looked at the sun, and I just looked at the sun going down over the sea, and just thought, wow, this is so beautiful. This is it almost I did cry a little bit, because it was just such deep, such rich, such beauty that I was seeing. And I just felt like God, my higher power, source, the universe, whatever you want to call it, gave me new eyes. And for the first time, I was able to really see things. Because when you're high, you're numbed up, you're dumbed out, you're zoned out, you're switched off, you're separated, you're disassociated. You're not really experiencing life. And in this moment, I felt a great sense of peace. But in this moment, I also felt a great sense of harmony and joy and love. And I just thought, wow, this is how life appears. And with that beauty that I saw in that moment, that beautiful sunset, the oranges and the reds and the purples, and that most amazing heavenly moment, I realized that God wants us to have heaven on earth. It says in the prayer, doesn't it, on earth as it is in heaven. And he wants us to have heaven on earth. He doesn't want us to live in pain, doesn't want us to, and we can have these moments of extreme beauty and blessing, just experiencing a sunset, just experiencing a hug, just having it, giving or receiving love. And I think that was the most beautiful high I'd ever experienced in my life. It was whole, it was real, it was nourishing, it fed my soul, and it was a beautiful, beautiful moment. And I think having that experience and telling myself, having that moment of, wow, I've got new eyes, I then wanted to see the world through those eyes every day.
Beautiful.
But to do that, I needed to do some work too.
So what I'm hearing so far, Amanda, is the power of listening to other people's stories. And it's so important that you're sharing your story right now, because you might be touching the heart and soul of somebody who is in that same situation, who doesn't realise that they've got a problem. Because when you're in the problem, you don't always see it.
No, I didn't know I had a problem. I just thought everybody who had a bad back took pain medication from 3 different doctors from 3 different parts of the world. I just thought that everybody took tranquilizers. I just thought that everybody was drank the way that I did. I almost used to think that it was really cool to have knowledge about wine and whiskies and different brandies. You took great pride in being a real ale expert. It was the nonsense you tell yourself.
What I'm also hearing is the importance of asking for help. And it reminds me of that phrase, ask and it is given, because we have free will in this human realm. And unless we ask for help, it can't be given.
So true. And, I think for me, asking for help was the hardest thing. First of
Yeah.
all, it was hard to ask for help from other people because, if you ask for help, you've got to admit that you've got something that's not right. You've got to admit that you've got something that's wrong. And I didn't want anyone to see any of the cracks. The cracks were all there and showing, and everyone knew about it. But, I didn't want people to know that behind that fake smile, there was a crumbling mess. I wanted to hide that away. I didn't want people to know. And I think I didn't feel like I could ask for help because I didn't value myself. I didn't feel I deserved the help.
Yeah.
And there was so many things that stopped me from asking for help. How do you ask for help? Who do you ask for help? Asking for help was huge and was the most difficult thing I ever have done. But when I asked people for help, I got advice, I got support, I got tips, I got hugs, I got people to hold my hand. I became a part of different communities where I would get really wonderful support. And for me, when I asked God for help, when I got on my knees and I prayed that day, that was when I got a sense of peace. That was when I got a sense of stillness, and that's when I got real pain relief for the first time. So
That's
yeah.
beautiful. And it's about living in the now, isn't it? One of the things you said was that for the first time I had eyes to see
New eyes.
way. And yeah,
Got new eyes.
how long did it take for your recovery to go from being in that shaking and, detoxing mode, going cold turkey, to
The
feeling
first three
okay again?
months, the first 90 days were horrific. I never want to have to live that again. It was hard. After 2 months and after I prayed for God to help me, that was when the shaking and the quaking stopped. The hallucinations and the sort of nightmares and the kind of physical sweats took about a month. The internal shaking another month, and that was when I'd ask God for help as well. And then for me to kind of truly overcome the obsession for drink, because even though I wasn't drinking, if I went to like a family party and there was people drinking, I could tell you of the 25 people that were part at the party, I could tell you what every single person at that party had to drink. It was like I had the spidery senses that were triggering off, and I knew that my nephew had brought a big box of cider. I knew that my brother had a crate of John Smith's. I knew that this person had this, and I knew how many cans that person had drunk. I knew how many gin and tonics that person had had. It was like my brain was working overtime. I was obsessed with it, and although I wasn't drinking it, I still desired it. I still craved it. I still wanted it,
So
and
how
I
did you
still
get
had this
through that?
obsession.
What did you have to say to yourself in order to not drink?
Well, do you know what? I think my mantra was 1 minute at a time, 1 minute at a time. Let's just get through the next minute. Let's get through the next 2 minutes. Let's get through the next hour. And I knew where I could go to get support, so I could pick up the phone and talk to somebody who understood what getting through 1 minute was. I just did it 1 minute at a time, 1 hour at a time, 1 day at a time, 1 moment at a time. I kept it in the day, I kept it in the moment, and I used mindfulness, because I think with depression, you tend to reflect on the past, and you almost relive negative experiences. When you look to the future, you can feel anxious. And if I'd have said to myself I was never going to drink ever again, that would have not worked. No way can I live like this forever. That's not going to happen. So I didn't want to look at the future either. But just by being very mindful and using mindfulness as a tool, actually really helped me just to go, okay, so how do I feel right now in this moment? I can feel my chest is quite tight. Okay, well, I'm going to do some breathing. and just relax the muscles around my chest. Okay, what's going on in my head right now? I'm feeling quite irritated and angry. Okay, why? Is there anything I can do about it? And I got to a place where I, was able to reflect on what was actually going on inside me. And I would use, I'm sure you'll have heard of the serenity prayer. God,
Yes.
grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. Well, I think it's the first line, to accept the things I cannot change. And, in a mindful moment, I'd be like, okay, where am I? What's happening? Is this something I can change? Is this something I can control? Is this something I can do something about? Okay, well, if the answer is yes, well, then I can take action on that and I can do that. And that might be pick up the phone and call a friend, or it might be get myself out of that situation, or go home if that's what I need to do, or eat something, or sleep, or take action on whatever it was that I need. But if it was out of my control, if it was somebody else's behavior, if it was a situation or a circumstances that I had no control over, if it was something that was outside of my realms of control, well, then I had to make a decision. Am I going to continue to punish myself, to torture myself with this? Or am I going to just go, oh, well, there's nothing I can do about that, so I'm going to let that go. And I started handing it over, and I started letting it go. And I think with that, it's grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can. That's the courage to pick up the phone and ask for help. That's the courage to take action on it. And the wisdom, this is the trick, the wisdom to know when you can or when you should take action, and when you just have to go, nothing I can do about this. So I can waste all my energy and get really stressed out about this and feel angry and upset and tired and irritated. And I can have all those negative feelings, which are potentially going to take me to a drink or a drug. Or I can go, there's nothing I can do about this, so I'm going to let it go.
I love that. And
But I
what you're
just needed
also
to be
doing
in the
as well,
moment.
what you're also doing there then is coming out of victim mindset and taking personal responsibility for the choices and the consequences of those choices, which is
I think
fabulous.
taking personal responsibility was a huge part of my recovery process as well, because my behavior had been so incredibly destructive. It wasn't just destructive in my life and with my health and in my head and in my body and in my career and all the other things. My behavior had impacted my friends, my family, my loved ones, and I needed to take responsibility for that as well. Definitely, I think the lack of responsibility beforehand, it was so much easier to not process things, to not think about things, and to just go, oh, do you know what? I feel really stressed or really overwhelmed, or I'm angry, or I don't like this situation. I'm going to have a drink, because I literally got instant relief whenever I had a drink. I wasn't anxious. I mean, the pain and that was all there waiting for me. But in the moment, the alcohol was the solution. So it was a great, fast, rapid solution.
So how did you switch your solutions, Amanda? So what did you do instead of the alcohol?
Well, I had to, as I say, I had to go one moment at a time, but I had to really look at where the pain was coming from. And I've done a lot of work on that, where the pain was coming from. I had a reasonably good upbringing. My parents are beautiful people, very caring, very Christian. We were taught about love and respect in the family. My parents didn't even really drink very much. So a lot of people, might say, oh, I must have had a really bad upbringing. And I really didn't. I had a lovely upbringing. I was brought up in a beautiful part of Yorkshire, in a gorgeous little village, had a very blessed upbringing. But for me, I am a very sensitive person. I've always been quite empathic. I pick up on what other people feel, and I didn't know what to do with that, and I didn't understand that either. I've always been a healer, and I've always had like sensations and feelings and emotions that are not mine, that are other people's. So whenever I walked into a supermarket, for some people, they'd be thinking about, I need to get a bag of oranges, and I need this for the packed lunches and that for my tea. I'd be like feeling all sorts of weird things, like emotions on some kind of a weird roller coaster, like anger and fear and panic and joy and love and I would just have all this a massive overwhelm. And I used to just think I was having panic attacks, because that's how, that's what I was diagnosed as, having panic attacks. But obviously over the years, I've spoke with lots of amazing spiritual leaders and gurus and advisors, and I've realized that actually I'm just a sensitive person, and I pick up energetically, empathically, whatever you want. I pick up on those non-verbal cues a lot that people have, their little expressions and the little ways that they, and I feel their emotions. Whether you want to be spiritual about it or more scientific about it, whenever I work with people, I pick up on all of that, which makes me a great therapist. But it made me a person who struggled when I just orientating myself through the world.
So just on that, Amanda, how did you learn to protect yourself against feeling all those things?
I learned to bring my aura in. I know that sounds like a bit of a weird thing to say, but when I closed my eyes, I got a sense of how far I was kind of like picking up that information, so I could close my eyes and I can pick up the energy of the different people in the room. And then what I did was I realized that there was almost like a circle of energy, or almost like strings from me reaching out, touching those people. And what I learned was that if with a small amount of silence, and just connecting with what I was actually experiencing and feeling, I could turn that down and I could draw that in, so that I was almost like in a bubble.
Excellent.
And that I was able to just bring my aura in and then just go, okay, I'm only feeling me now. I'm only feeling my emotions. I'm only feeling what's going on with me. So I learned that was really quite an important moment. And I think quite often I used to have, if you've had like a passionate conversation with somebody, or even a row or something, I would leave that conversation. I would bring that conversation with me. I would replay it in my head. If it had been a negative conversation, I would zoom in on the negative stuff. So I became more mindful. I became a watcher of my thoughts and feelings. And I dealt with each thing as it arose by either asking for help through prayer. I really got into meditation. Meditation really helped me to feel more calm, more centered, more grounded, but it helped me to understand myself so that I could shut down to all of this overstimulation I was experiencing from out there.
Awesome.
And it enabled me to really tune in and know what I needed, whether it be food, sleep, rest, a good chat with a friend, or more professional guidance and help.
So tell me about the birth of Amanda Joy and who you serve, and who you serve in terms of, like, is it the people who are in the same place where you were at, or is it a different audience completely?
I am a clinical hypnotherapist, and one of the reasons why I do what I do is because it really helped me. Hypnotherapy really helped me. So over the course of my recovery, I did a lot of inner child work, where I kind of went back through hypnotherapy with regression and helped little Amanda, who'd struggled with things, who'd experienced trauma and upset, which was kind of the root of some of my behavioral responses and did lead me to drink. So I was able to help little Amanda through some of the difficult times that caused her to drink. But I also did what we call parts therapy. So every experience that we've ever had in our whole lives becomes a part of us, and it kind of molds how we see and understand and experience and orientate ourselves through the world. And there were parts of me that wanted to drink, and there were parts of me that wanted to die, and there were parts of me that wanted to self-destruct. There were parts of me that really wanted to live, and there were parts of me that wanted to have fun and wanted to experience things. And there was lots of these different parts of me that all made up me. And I went to see a really good therapist because I have therapy regularly anyway. And I was just having a sort of monthly session, and we were talking about moving forward in my life and making some plans for, my future. And I was feeling a bit resistant about looking into the future because I'd been so focused on keeping everything in the minute, in the hour, in the day, that I was almost a bit scared about looking to the future and imagining a life of abundance and wellness and health and wealth and love and relationships just felt like so out of reach. It had become a bit of a block to me moving forward. That we would talk about limiting beliefs, but I had beliefs within me about myself, that were things like I'm not good enough, and I don't know what I'm doing, and nobody's going to believe a junkie, and nobody's going to want. I had all sorts of really negative thoughts about myself in my head, and that were beliefs that I had created through myself. Things that people had said to me over the years were definitely a part of that. So I decided I wanted to have some parts therapy to deal with some of these kind of like these parts of me and see if we could like negotiate with those parts. And one of in the session, because my name is Amanda Joy, but I never used the joy bit. In fact, I wasn't even Amanda for a long time. You could have just gone "muh," and I'd have responded, because I had so little self-worth and so little value in myself that I just couldn't do anything. And so I had this parts therapy session, and during the parts therapy session, we were exploring how do I, Amanda, become who I want to be. And one of the things that came out of the parts therapy was that I needed to connect with the joyful part of me. I needed to connect with the part of me that sings. I hadn't sung for years, not even in the shower. I needed to connect to the part of me that danced, that ran, that jumped, that laughed, that told terrible bad jokes, that loved watching science fiction, that loved reading books and fantasy and the joyful things. I really needed to reconnect with the joy in Amanda. So I just decided to start using my full name. I only ever got Amanda Joy when I was naughty, Amanda Joy. But I decided to start using Amanda Joy because I wanted to remind myself every single day to connect with my joy. The other thing that really helped me was acts of service. So it's interesting you asked me about service, because for me, serving others, helping others, guiding others, sharing what I know worked with others, actually those acts of selflessness and those acts of service built my self-worth, built my self-esteem, and gave me a sense of purpose and value. So, serving, living a life of service, helping others. You can't be selfish when you're serving. You can't be self-centered when you're serving. You can't be self-seeking when you're serving. But you absolutely get it's like a beautiful flow of giving and receiving that nurtures and nourishes. And there is a bit of a balance that needs to be found with that as well, that you're not over giving and giving too much, because then that's not good for you either. But when you're serving and you're genuinely supporting others and helping others and lifting them up, that's when you get that sense of value. That's when you build your self-esteem. That's when you build your self-worth. So serving others and reconnecting with my joy came out of that parts therapy session, and that's what really put fuel in my rocket, and guided me to become a therapist, and then to now set up my own training school.
That's awesome, Amanda. And you mentioned there about, you know, having a sense of purpose. Are you clear on what your purpose is?
Yeah, well, one of the techniques that I teach and use is very much about connecting with that higher part of yourself. Some people call it the higher self, the inner goddess, the spirit you, the wise you, God. I mean, so many names, but there's a sense, I think, within us all, deep within us all, certainly within my subconscious. There's a part of me that absolutely knows what I'm here for. It knows why I'm on this earth. I genuinely believe that I chose to be here at this time, and I'm here for a reason. I've got a job to do, and I used my hypnotherapy tools and techniques to find out what that purpose was and to very deeply connect with it. And I'm quite happy to share what that purpose is. So my purpose is to use my voice to help support and guide other people, hence the podcast and the teaching and the therapist, because that's what we do as hypnotherapists. We guide people using our voices, and you know, I've learned how to use my voice to be able to communicate with people in their language, using hypnotic language, so I can really speak to their subconscious and help them to find their purpose and guide them. And I have that vision in my head of what my life looks like, you know, the house, the car, the partner, and you know, and I've just really sat with that vision and felt how good it feels to, you know, I imagine I've already done it, but you know, to sit with that, and I sit in that vision on a daily basis. It's part of my spiritual breakfast, because I was very aware that you know, have all this healthy food in the morning and green milkshakes and all that stuff, and take exercise and have a shower, but you know, I wasn't really feeding my mind with the right things. So I always have a spiritual breakfast first thing in the morning, which, you know, I might read something positive and do some prayer and meditation, but as a part of that, I always connect with my vision. What am I here for? What's my purpose? I call it my divine calling. And I asked myself a couple of questions. How am I giving to people today? How am I serving people today? How am I connecting with people? Am I asking for help if I need it? That's part of that connecting with people. Am I offering help to those who need it? How am I feeling that sense of a oneness with everyone today? And am I following that path? Am I following my divine calling? So healing work, parts therapy, inner child work, lots of hypnotherapy over the years, acceptance, honesty, mindfulness. I have a bit of a toolbox, really, that has just brought me to this amazing place. But I wake up now in the morning and I'm kind of like, woohoo, I'm alive. And I genuinely wake up and think, this is so cool. And I, you know, recently met a beautiful, lovely man, and so he's now in my life as well. So I'm actually really enjoying romantic love as well for the first time ever, and just so wonderful. And yeah, I open my eyes in the morning and I don't have that gloomy doomy monster sitting at the end of the bed. I kind of go, all right, what are we going to do today? Woohoo! And I'm so grateful that I'm alive. And I hopefully my joyfulness is contagious, because I am really grateful to be here, and I do feel like I have a job to do. I do have a purpose, and that's what I'm going to be following, possibly for the rest of the time that I am inhabiting this body.
Amanda, you ooze joy, you ooze positivity, you lift the vibration of the people that you're with. You know, it just shines through you. And I think what you're doing is absolutely fabulous. How can people help you right now? What do you need?
What do I need? God, do you know what? I'm so lucky. I've got everything that I need. I live in this kind of lovely place where I believe in abundance of love and wealth, and what I kind of do in terms of giving oneness and following my divine calling, in terms of connecting with people, that brings to me everything that I could need. What do I need? I've kind of
Or
got everything.
how can people help you? So, for example, are you looking for inspirational people to
I'm
interview?
always on the lookout for inspirational people. Yeah, I mean, I'm always looking for guests for my show. If people want to share their story, in the way that I've shared mine today, but if you want to share your story or share what you do and how you help people, I'd love to invite you to be a guest on my show. But I mean, if you are a caring person and you're looking to find out how to become a clinical hypnotherapist, if you want to, I always say, be a bright light in your community, but we've got such a need for mental health, really, you know, qualified, confident, knowledgeable mental health workers at the moment. If you want to help people with their mental well-being, if you want to help people that were like me, a bit lost and nearly dead, have you know, a better quality of life, you know, I have this amazing training school. I've got some amazing teachers who work with me, and we're ready to enroll you on our foundation training course.
How long is the course, Amanda?
Sorry?
How long is the course? If somebody's thinking, oh, that sounds interesting,
It's
what's the length
10
of time?
months, the course. With work, it usually takes a full year. So the foundation weekend is just a dip your toe in the water and say if it's for you, and that's accredited, and you can get insurance to practice with that, but it's just the basics. If you want to be a fully qualified clinical hypnotherapist, with your own business and your own established practice, then it's the diploma training that you would be looking to do, and that's over 10 months. That is 140 hours of synchronized learning and 400 hours of self-directed study, including case studies and lots of reading, and then supervision, one-to-one, and peer supervision as well. So it's quite a commitment, but it's a life transforming experience. I think I'm evidence of that. You know, training in clinical hypnotherapy was a huge part of my healing journey. It gave me access to this massive toolbox that I was able to then apply to my own life, which is, you know, continuing to help me every single day. So personally, it's an incredible journey, but it's so beautiful. It's such a beautiful job, such an empowering thing to do for me and for other people. It's a great way to live, to serve, and to help people, particularly at the moment. So yeah,
Awesome.
come and train or come and be on my show. That's how you can help. There you go.
Amanda, before we finish, are there any last nuggets that you feel that you want to share that we haven't already covered?
Do you know, I think we'll just reflect on what we've said, really, and that if you are struggling, pick up the phone. You can ring me. You can pick up, you can find me on my website, and you can book in for a free consultation. I just give people the space to talk, and I will listen. It's just amandajoy.co.uk. Just put yourself a free consultation and we can have a chat. Pick up the phone and we can talk on the phone. I can certainly guide you to help. If I'm not the right one, I can guide you to someone who can help you. I'm very blessed in that I do have well well-being show. So I'm connected with lots of real experts in the area of well-being, both sort of Western medical, NHS, and kind of more holistic and integrative medical practitioners as well. So if you have questions, do feel free to ask them. But yeah, I think the hardest thing is asking for help. Ask for help. Ask for help if you need it. You know, take the help when it's given as well. Ask for help. Hardest bit.
So Amanda, thank you so much for sharing with us today. You know, I think what you've actually covered is phenomenal. Moving from that pain, recognizing that you had a problem, taking the steps that you did to overcome, going cold turkey, and learning a new way of being and completely transforming your life. And you know, in just five years from where you were in the depth of your pain to where you are now, living in that heaven on earth every day. So thank
Yeah,
you for
it's amazing.
sharing. And if anybody's listening in and you need help, support, reach out. You know, when we're in those lower vibrations, life can be tough. And it's time to let go of that now. It
Mm.
wasn't meant to be like this, and there
You
are
don't have to live like
solutions.
that. You don't have
No.
to live with pain. You can. There are so many solutions. There's not just one, there are many, many, many solutions. And, you know, all you have to do is ask for help, and that can get you on that path to finding a solution that's right for you. You know, my solution was right for me. Everybody has their own journey of healing, but asking for help is definitely the first step.
So blessings, Amanda. Thank you so much for giving me the honour of interviewing you for your show.
Thank you.
It's been an absolute pleasure, and I look forward to seeing what you create in the future, you know, with your amazing podcast. Where can people find your podcast?
Oh, it's on Apple Podcasts, it's on Spotify. You can find me on Alexa as well, Amanda Joy's podcast. But you can also find me on Awakened Podcast, which is at www.awakenedpodcast.com. And you can also find my college at it's the Northern College of Clinical Hypnotherapy, and you can find us on social media. You can find us on Google. We're there. We're around.
So, from the frequency alchemist Debra Sofia Magdalene to Amanda Joy, the joyful mind mentor, we wish you all a blessed day. Enjoy seeing through new eyes. Bye for now, everybody.
Thanks, Deb. Bye.